Welcome to Knowledge and Power, Chosen Ones. You didn't ask for this path, but it chose you. Being a chosen one isn't about titles or recognition. It's about resilience forged in silence, battles fought in shadows, and triumphs earned without applause. You've faced obstacles that would have broken most, yet here you are, standing stronger, wiser, and unshaken. But let's not sugarcoat it. This journey hasn't been easy. You've been doubted, betrayed, and underestimated. People who sought to diminish you are now waking up to a truth they can't ignore. They picked the wrong person to underestimate. This video isn't just about revenge or proving anyone wrong. It's about reclaiming your power, understanding your worth, and seeing the ripple effect your transformation has on those who tried to tear you down. You are the chosen one, not because life was kind, but because you turned pain into power and chaos into clarity. Stick around. This video will show you how your very existence has become the brutal reckoning your enemies never saw coming. Let's dive in. Let's get started. Number 1. Their lies couldn't keep up with your truth. They thought they could bury you under a pile of lies, but what they didn't understand is that the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to exist. Lies are quick and flashy, designed to grab attention and twist reality. But they're like paper boats on a stormy sea. They might float for a moment, but they don't last. Your truth, on the other hand, is solid. It doesn't sway with opinions or crumble under pressure. It stands, even when no one is looking. Your enemies underestimated the power of authenticity. While they schemed to destroy your reputation, you kept living your life unapologetically honest and true to who you are. At first, their lies might have gained traction. People love a good story, even if it's false. But here's the thing about lies: they demand constant maintenance. They're fragile, easily exposed, and always need more lies to survive. And while they were busy building their house of cards, you were focused on building something real. The brutal awakening came when they realized that the lies couldn't keep up. Your actions, your integrity, and the way you carried yourself were proof enough to discredit every falsehood they spread. People started seeing the cracks in their stories because the truth doesn't need convincing. It just aligns. And when the dust settled, they were left with nothing but the embarrassment of their failed attempts. The most painful part for them wasn't just that their lies fell apart. It was watching how little those lies actually affected you. You didn't fight back with rage or sink to their level. You let time, truth, and your unwavering character do the work for you. And in doing so, you exposed a reality they couldn't deny. No matter how far their lies traveled, they were always doomed to collapse under the weight of your truth. That realization, it wasn't just a loss for them, it was their reckoning. Number 2, you thrived in the chaos they thought would break you. They thought the chaos would destroy you. They believed that piling on challenges, setbacks, and obstacles would wear you down and make you crumble under the pressure. What they didn't understand is that chaos doesn't weaken you, it sharpens you. While most people run from uncertainty, you embrace it. You don't fear the storm, you become it. Every challenge they hurled at you, every moment they expected you to fall apart, only served as the fire that forged your strength. They underestimated your ability to adapt. You didn't just survive the chaos, you learned to master it. When they thought they had you cornered, you found a way out. When they thought you were done, you rose again, more determined than ever. Their attacks didn't weaken you because you refused to let them. Instead, you turned every failure into a lesson, every setback into a strategy, and every betrayal into fuel. They expected you to break, but all you did was grow. The most brutal part for them wasn't just that you thrived, it was that you thrived in the very chaos they created. They thought they had the upper hand, that their manipulation and schemes would give them control. But what they didn't realize is that while they were busy trying to destroy you, you were quietly evolving. You became unshakable, the kind of person who grows stronger with every hit. In the end, the chaos they threw at you became their undoing. It exposed their weaknesses and highlighted your resilience. They wanted to see you shattered, but instead they were forced to watch as you transformed into someone untouchable. That realization hit them harder than anything else. No matter what they do, they can't break someone who has learned to thrive in the storm. You turned their chaos into your advantage, and now they're left with nothing but the regret of underestimating the wrong person. Number 3. You no longer needed their validation. They thrived on the idea that their opinions could shape your decisions, that their approval or rejection could determine your worth. For the longest time, they thought they had power over you, not through physical force, but through the subtle chains of validation. They would give you just enough approval to keep you seeking more, and then withdraw it to keep you questioning yourself. It was a game of control, a silent manipulation meant to keep you tethered to their expectations. But then, something changed. You stopped playing, you stopped looking to them for confirmation of your value. The need to please, to prove yourself, to earn their recognition, gone. You realized that their validation was never about you, it was about them. It was a way to inflate their own sense of importance, to feel superior by keeping you in a state of self-doubt. When you saw through that, everything shifted. You started trusting yourself. You made decisions based on your own standards, not theirs. You found confidence in your own vision, your own instincts, and slowly, their opinions began to feel irrelevant. Whether they praised you or criticized you, it no longer moved you. It was like flipping a switch. They no longer had the ability to affect your emotions. This was their brutal awakening. They had built their entire strategy on the assumption that you cared what they thought. When you didn't, they were left scrambling. Without the ability to control how you felt, they were powerless. The games, the manipulation, the subtle digs, it all fell flat. And the more indifferent you became, the more frustrated they grew. The hardest part for them wasn't just losing control, it was realizing that your self-worth was no longer tied to their opinions. You became untouchable, and in doing so, you exposed just how small their power truly was. Their validation was meaningless, and without it, they were left with nothing. Number 4. Your success exposed their true intentions. Success has a way of revealing people for who they truly are. When you were struggling or just starting out, their smiles seemed genuine, their words encouraging. But that was only because they didn't see you as a threat. They underestimated you, assuming you'd stay in a place that made them comfortable. But when you started to rise, when your hard work began paying off, and your achievements became undeniable, the cracks in their facade started to show. At first they tried to keep up the act, polite compliments here, forced smiles there. But success doesn't just elevate you, it brings out the truth in others. Their fake support couldn't mask what was brewing underneath: jealousy, bitterness, and resentment. Your achievements didn't inspire them, they exposed their insecurities. Every milestone you reached was like a mirror reflecting their own stagnation, and they hated it. Their awakening came when they could no longer hide it. The mask of being a friend or supporter slipped. The subtle digs started showing up in their words. The backhanded compliments, the downplaying of your efforts, the sudden silence when you shared good news, it all revealed what they were trying to hide. They weren't rooting for you. They were hoping you'd fail. The truth is, your success didn't change you. It changed the way they saw you. They realized you were no longer someone they could control, pity, or dismiss. You became a reminder of what they hadn't achieved, of risks they didn't take, and of potential they let waste away. And the higher you climbed, the harder it became for them to pretend. In the light of your success, their true intentions were laid bare. The smiles faded, the masks dropped, and all that was left was the raw, uncomfortable truth. They couldn't celebrate you because your growth highlighted their lack of it, and that was their brutal awakening, realizing they couldn't dim your light, and worse, that it was exposing their darkness. Number 5. They tried to outdo you and failed miserably. They thought it would be easy to outshine you. Fueled by envy, they decided to mimic your moves, believing they could match your success without understanding the sacrifices and grit that brought you here. They saw the results, but overlooked the relentless work, sleepless nights, and unshakable determination behind it. They thought they could copy the surface and get the same outcome, but they underestimated the depth of what makes you who you are. Their attempt wasn't just a failure, It was a spectacular unraveling. They tried to replicate your ideas, your strategies, even your style, but it fell flat because it lacked authenticity. What you have can't be imitated. Your originality, your vision, and your ability to think and create beyond the obvious. Those aren't things you can borrow. They thought it was about the steps you took, but they didn't realize it was about the fire in you that fuels those steps. And when they failed, it wasn't just embarrassing, it was revealing. It exposed their envy, their insecurities, and the fact that their efforts were never about their own growth. It was about trying to one-up you. They weren't chasing success for themselves, they were chasing yours. And that's why they were destined to fall short. The most brutal part for them wasn't just failing. It was failing while watching you continue to rise. It was the stark reminder that you're not just successful, you're irreplaceable. Your journey isn't something anyone else can replicate because it's yours. It's built on your unique resilience, your creativity, and your ability to stay true to yourself no matter what. In the end, their attempts only made your shine more obvious. Every misstep they took highlighted the strength of your path, and the harder they tried to compete, the more apparent it became. They were never in your league. Their failure wasn't just a momentary stumble, it was a permanent reminder that no one can outdo the original. Number 6. You made peace with their hatred. Hatred thrives on attention. It feeds on your reaction, your anger, your need to retaliate. But you didn't play into their hands. Instead, you did the one thing they couldn't handle. You made peace with their hatred. You didn't deny it, fear it, or try to change it. You simply accepted it for what it was, their issue, not yours. And in doing so, you stripped their hatred of its power. They wanted to provoke you, to drag you into their mess, to see you consumed by the same bitterness that eats at them. They expected you to fight fire with fire, to match their aggression with your own. But instead of giving them the satisfaction, you chose calm. You didn't stoop to their level. You didn't let their anger define you or their negativity dictate your actions. You let them rage while you moved forward, unbothered and unstoppable. Their hatred was never about you. It was a reflection of their own struggles. It was easier for them to despise your peace, your growth, and your success than to confront their own shortcomings. But what they didn't anticipate was your refusal to engage. You didn't waste your energy defending yourself, explaining yourself, or proving them wrong. You let their hatred run its course, knowing it would eventually burn out on its own. And that was their brutal awakening. They poured all their energy into tearing you down, only to realize you were untouchable. Their insults, their schemes, their attempts to tarnish your name, they all fell flat because you didn't give them the reaction they craved. You didn't fight back, not because you couldn't, but because you didn't need to. In the end, they were left exhausted, bitter, and defeated while you remained calm and unshaken. They wasted their energy on someone who didn't even blink. And that's what stung the most. The realization that their hatred had no impact on you, and that they had only succeeded in destroying themselves. Number 7. You weaponized their doubts against them. They thought their doubt was a weapon, a way to keep you small, to make you question yourself. They laughed at your ambitions, mocked your dreams, and assumed you'd never make it. But what they failed to realize was that every single one of those jabs, every insult, every moment they dismissed you was not a blow to your spirit but a spark to your fire. They thought their skepticism would slow you down, but it only pushed you forward. Instead of letting their doubt break you, you weaponized it. Each criticism became motivation. Every sneer turned into determination. Their dismissal wasn't a setback. It became the very reason you got up every day and worked harder. They handed you the fuel, thinking they were discouraging you. But in reality, they were feeding the drive that would lead you to victory. When they laughed at your dreams, they didn't see the bigger picture. They thought their words were barriers, but they were simply stepping stones on your path. You used their disbelief as a reminder of what you had to prove, not just to them but to yourself. With every mockery, you grew stronger, more determined, and more focused on your goals. And then came the brutal awakening. They watched you succeed. The very dreams they ridiculed, the very goals they doubted, you achieved them. The vision they couldn't see became a reality. And now, all that laughter, all that doubt, all those dismissals, they were no longer in the rear view. They were right there, watching as you stood tall with everything they said you'd never accomplish. Their doubts weren't just a sign of their disbelief in you. They were the perfect motivation for your success, and when you finally succeeded, it was their doubts that made your victory even sweeter. They handed you the reason to rise, and you did so higher than they could have ever imagined, watching you thrive with the very fuel they gave you. That was the ultimate brutal awakening. Number 8. You outclassed them without trying. They spent all their energy trying to keep up with you, obsessed with competing, measuring their success against yours. They were so fixated on you that they didn't even notice the bigger picture. You weren't playing the same game. While they were caught up in comparison and rivalry, you were focused on something much bigger, becoming the best version of yourself. You weren't concerned with beating them or outshining them. Your focus was on your own growth, your own progress, your own journey. You made moves, not out of spite or to prove anything to anyone, but because you knew your potential and refused to settle for anything less. Every step you took was for your own evolution, not because you were trying to outdo anyone else. Meanwhile, they kept trying to outpace you, chasing a shadow of competition that didn't even exist. The real awakening came when they finally realized something they had overlooked all along. Your goals were never about them. They were just background noise in your story. You were working on a level they weren't even invited to. Your ambition was focused inward, on self-mastery, on pushing boundaries, on personal growth. They were too busy trying to mirror your steps, while you were charting a path they couldn't even see. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. They had exhausted themselves trying to play a game that wasn't theirs, and you had already outclassed them, not by competing, but by staying true to your own vision. The result? They were left scrambling to figure out how to catch up to someone who wasn't even playing by the same rules. Number 9. You became the standard they could never meet. As you continued to evolve, you unintentionally became the standard they could never meet. They watched as you leveled up, not just in success, but in the depth of your character. With every step you took, you raised the bar, not for them, but for yourself. Your resilience, your intelligence, your authenticity. They all blended together in a way that made you untouchable. They tried to keep up, tried to mirror what you had, but they couldn't grasp the unique combination of qualities that made you who you are. The brutal reality they faced was this: no matter how much they tried to replicate your success, they could never replicate the essence of what makes you stand apart. They may have seen the results of your hard work and ambition, but they couldn't capture the mindset behind it. They couldn't mirror the resilience that allowed you to keep going when things got tough, or the intelligence that guided your decisions, and they could never duplicate the authenticity that makes everything you do so effortlessly genuine. It didn't matter how much they mimicked your actions or attempted to steal your ideas. They were always going to fall short. They weren't just lacking in skill. They lacked the unique combination of inner qualities that made you who you are. Your authenticity became the measure by which they were judged, and no matter how much they tried to imitate your moves, they couldn't replicate the soul behind them. In the end, your growth exposed their limitations. You didn't just rise above them in success. You set a standard they could never reach. And that's the brutal truth they were forced to confront. No matter how hard they tried, they would always be chasing an ideal they could never truly capture. Number 10. They saw themselves through your shadow. As you climbed higher, something powerful happened. They began to see themselves through your shadow. It wasn't just your success that rattled them. It was the mirror you held up to their own insecurities. Every step you took forward, every milestone you hit, magnified what they lacked. Your progress didn't just elevate you, it exposed their shortcomings in ways they couldn't ignore. They thought they could stand next to you, maybe even try to keep up. But the closer they got, the more their own inadequacies became impossible to escape. Your strength highlighted their weakness, your confidence revealed their doubts, and your growth made their stagnation painfully clear. They tried to position themselves alongside you, but what they didn't anticipate was that your light would expose their shadow. It wasn't just about success. It was about the way you carried yourself, the way you handled challenges, the way you embraced your purpose. Your authenticity, resilience, and the way you rose above everything left them questioning their own value. Their frustration wasn't about your achievements. It was about realizing they couldn't replicate the essence of what made you unstoppable. The closer they stood to you, the darker their reflection became. Your strength only made their weaknesses more visible, and that's what made it so brutal. They saw who they were not, who they could never be, and it hit them harder than any defeat could. You weren't just winning. You were forcing them to confront the fact that they had nowhere near the depth, drive, or resilience that you possessed. And that was the hardest pill to swallow. Number 11. They weren't ready for your absence. They were so consumed with trying to drag you down, so focused on your downfall, that they never considered what would happen if you simply walked away. Their brutal awakening came the moment you vanished, whether it was physically, mentally, or emotionally. They never prepared for the day you decided that their drama, their toxicity, and their petty games no longer had a place in your life. For so long they thought they held power over you. They thought they could manipulate, belittle, or control your energy. But what they didn't realize was that your presence, your strength, and your drive were never dependent on them. You weren't stuck in their orbit. You were choosing to be there. And when you chose to leave, it hit them like a freight train. Without you, they were forced to face the truth. They had nothing. All the time and effort they spent trying to break you left them unprepared for the reality of your absence. The void you left wasn't just physical. It was emotional and mental. The power dynamic shifted, and they were left in the wreckage of their own actions, with nothing but the emptiness they tried so hard to fill by tearing you down. The hardest part for them wasn't just that you left. It was that you left without a second thought. You didn't beg for validation, you didn't seek closure, and you didn't look back. Your absence was the loudest statement you could make. It wasn't about leaving in anger or revenge. It was about reclaiming your peace, your space, and your power. And in that silence, they were forced to confront the emptiness of their own existence, a void they had created by underestimating your resilience. Number 12. You became immune to their manipulation. The moment you stopped reacting, everything shifted. They had always thrived on pulling your strings, playing their mind games, and manipulating your emotions. For so long, they believed they had power over you because you'd react, you'd care, you'd try to fight back. But when you stopped giving them that energy, their control over you evaporated. It wasn't your resistance that shook them, it was your indifference. You stopped playing their game, and in doing so, you exposed the truth they'd been hiding from themselves. They had never truly had control over you. It was always just an illusion. They couldn't grasp it at first. When they pushed your buttons, you didn't flinch. When they tried to provoke you, you remained calm. They were left scrambling for ways to get a reaction, to get under your skin, but you refused to give them the satisfaction. And in their desperation to regain control, they finally realized something that hit them harder than any confrontation ever could. You were immune to their manipulation. You weren't just resisting their tactics, you were unaffected by them. They couldn't manipulate someone who had already mastered the art of detachment. The moment you stopped engaging with their attempts, you took away the very thing that gave them power. They no longer had any leverage over you, and that realization was brutal for them. They were left standing there, powerless, unable to grasp how they had lost their grip on you so completely. And in the end, their greatest weapon, your emotional reaction, was neutralized, leaving them with nothing but their own hollow attempts at control. Number 13. They realized you were watching while they slept. While they were caught up in their own complacency, assuming you were unaware of their schemes, you were already steps ahead. They slept while you stayed alert, not just reacting to their moves, but anticipating them. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, you were silently plotting your next move. They couldn't see it coming because they never imagined someone could be so prepared for their every misstep. While they slacked off, letting their own laziness and distractions cloud their judgment, you were working, building, refining, and positioning yourself in ways they couldn't even comprehend. Your enemies had this false belief that they were ahead because they couldn't see the quiet, relentless grind you were putting in behind the scenes. But what they didn't realize was that they were already at a disadvantage. You weren't just responding to their attacks, you were planning for them from the start. They never understood the depth of your strategy. They thought they could move freely, assuming you were out of the loop, but the truth hit them hard. You were always watching, always assessing. Every decision they made, every mistake they thought was unnoticed, you had already factored in. And now, as they woke up to the painful reality, they realized that the battles they didn't even know they were fighting were already lost. Your foresight and preparation weren't just tactical advantages. They were the difference between victory and defeat. The brutal awakening for them was understanding that they never stood a chance. By the time they woke up, you had already outmaneuvered them. In the end, the truth is simple. You're not just anyone. You're the chosen one because you've shown time and again that you are unbreakable, unstoppable, and undeniable. Your enemies thought they could take you down with lies, manipulation, and sabotage, but all they did was fuel your rise. They never saw it coming because they never understood the depth of your strength, your resilience, and your unwavering commitment to your path. You've outgrown their expectations, their games, and their petty attacks. You've shown them that you can thrive in chaos, that their opinions mean nothing to you, and that your success is inevitable. They tried to control you, but the only thing they controlled was their own downfall. Their most brutal awakening wasn't just realizing you were stronger than they thought. It was realizing they were never in control of you to begin with. You're the chosen one because you've built yourself from the ground up, refusing to let anyone or anything hold you back. You've become the standard, the one everyone else measures themselves against. You've turned every obstacle into fuel, every setback into motivation, and every challenge into an opportunity. Now it's time to keep moving forward. Let this be your reminder. You are on the right path. Your enemies have already shown you that they can't keep up, and that's your sign to keep climbing higher. Don't slow down. Don't look back. Keep thriving, keep rising, and keep being the force that makes the world wake up and realize what they've been blind to all along. You're unstoppable, and it's time the world knows it.